Prabhupada ki jai, Yantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Go Premanand. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jaya Mudiraye.
Tato Jaya Mudiraye.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 14, The Disappearance of Lord Krishna. Text number 37. Please repeat. Yatpada
Yatpada
Surasana
Shushana
Mukya
Mukya
Kamana
Kamana
Yat Para Susrusana Mukya Karmana
Parasushushana Mukya Karmana
Satyadayo
Satyadayo
Dvi
Dvi
Asta
Asta
Sahasra
Sahasra
Yositaha
Yositaha
Satyaya Yodvi Asta Sahasra Yosita
Satyadayo Yasta Sahasra Yosita
Nirjitya
Nirjita
Sankye
Sankye
Shri
Sri
Dasan
Dasan
Tad
Das
Asiso
Asiso
Nirjitya Sankye Tridasam Tad Asiso
Nirjita Sankye Samskara Asiso
Haranti
Haranti
Vrajrayuda
Vajrayuda
Balabochitaha
Balabochita
Haranti Vrajayuda Balabochitaha
Haranti Vajrayuda Balabochita
Yat Parasusrusana Mukya Karmana
Yapar Sushushana Mukya Karmana
Satyarayo Dviyasta Sahasra Yosita
Satyadayo Vyasta Sahasra Yosita
Nirjitya Sankye Tridasam Starasito
Nirjita Sankye Tridasam Starasito
Haranti Vrajayuda Balabochitaha
Haranti Vajrayuda Balabochita
Parasusrusana Mukya Kamana
Yapar Sushushana Mukya Karmana
Satyado Yodviyasta Sahasra Yosita
Satyadayo Vyasta Sahasra Yosita
Nirjitya Sankye Tridasam Starasiso
Nirjita Sankye Tridasam Starasiso
Haranti Vrajrayuda Balabochita
Haranti Vajrayuda Balabochita
Yat Parasusrusana Mukya Kamana
Yapar Sushushana Mukya Karmana
Satyadayo Dviyasta Sahasra Yosita
Satyadayo Vyasta Sahasra Yosita
Nirjitya Sankye Tridasam Starasiso
Nirjita Sankye Tridasam Starasiso
Haranti Vrajayuda Balabochitaha
Haranti Vajrayuda Balabochita Yatpara Sushushana Mukya Karmana
Yatpara Sushushana Mukya Karmana
Satyadayo Vyasta Sahasra Yoshita
Satyadayo Vyasta Yoshita
Nirjita Sankye Tridasam Starasiso
Nirjita Sankye Tridasam Starasiso
Haranti Vajrayuda Balabochita
Haranti Vajrayuda Balabochita
Yatpara Sushushana Mukya Karmana
Yatpara Sushushana Mukya Karmana
Satyadayo Dvivasta Sahasra Yositaha
Satyadayo Vyasta Sahasra Yosita
Nirjita Sankye Tridasam Starasiso
Nirjita Sankye Tridasam Starasiso
Haranti Vrajrayuda Balabochita
Haranti Vajrayuda Balabochita
Yatpara Sushushana Mukya Karmana
Yatpara Sushushana Mukya Karmana
Yadayo Vyasta Sahasra Yoshita
Satyadayo Vyasta Sahasra Yosita
Nirjita Sankye Tridasam Starasiso
Nirjita Sankye Tridasam Starasiso
Haranti Vajrayuda Balabochita
Haranti Vajrayuda Balabochita
Yat pada sushushana mukhya karmana Sattadayo diyashta sahasra yoshitaha Nirjita sankhe tridasam stadashisho Haranti vajrayudha vallabhojitaha
Yatpadashushrushana mukhya karmana Satyadayo dvashta sahasra yoshitaha Nirjitya sankhe tridasham tadashisho Haranti vajrayudha vallabhojitaha Yatpadam shushushana mukhya karmana
Nirjita sankhe tridasam stadashisho Haranti vajrayudha vallabhojitaha
Yat, whose, pada, feet, susrusana, administration of conflicts. No, not conflicts, conflicts.
Comforts.
Conflicts, like comfortable.
Comfort.
Mukya, the most important. Kamana, by the acts of. Satya Aryaha, queens headed by Satyabhama. Dviyasta, twice eight. Sahasra, thousand. Yositaha, the fair sex. Nirjitya, by subduing. Sankhye, in the battle. Three, dasan, of the denizens of heaven. Tat-asitaha, what is enjoyed by the demigod. Haranti, do take away. Vrajra, Ayuda, Balaba, the wives of the personality. Personality, yeah, not plural. Who controls the thunderbolt. Uchitaha, deserving. Okay, Srimad Prabhupada's translation. Simply by administering conflicts at the lotus feet of the Lord, which is the most important of all services, the queens at Dwarka, headed by Satyabhama, induced the Lord to conquer the demigod. Thus, the queens enjoyed things which are prerogatives of the wives of the controller of the thunderbolt. Please repeat. Simply by administering conflicts at the lotus feet of the Lord. Which is the most important of all services. The queens at Dwarka. Headed by Satyabhama. Induced the Lord. To conquer the demigods. Thus the queens enjoyed things
Thus the kings enjoy things
which are prerogatives
which are prerogatives
of the wives of the controller of the
of
thunderbolt.
the wives of the controller of the thunderbolt.
Srila Prabhupada's divine purpose.
Jai.
Satyabhama, one of the principal queens of Lord Sri Krishna, at Dwarka. After killing Narakasura, Lord Krishna visited the palace of Narakasura, accompanied by Satyabhama. He went to Indraloka, also with Satyabhama, and she was received by, Sachi Devi, who introduced her to the mother of the demigods, Aditi. Aditi was very much pleased with Satyabhama, and she blessed her with the benediction of permanent youth as long as Lord Krishna remained on the earth. Aditi also took her with her to show her the special prerogatives of the demigods and the heavenly planets. When Satyabhama saw the Parijata flower, she desired to have it in her palace at Dwarka. After that, she came back to Dwarka along with her husband and expressed her willingness to have the Parijata flower at her palace. Satyabhama's palace was especially bedecked with valuable jewels, and even in the hottest season of summer, the inside of the palace remained cool, as if air-conditioned. She decorated her palace with various flags, heralding the news of her great husband's presence there. Once, along with her husband, she met Draupadi, and she was anxious to be instructed by Draupadi in the ways and means of pleasing her husband. Draupadi was expert in this affair because she kept 5 husbands, the Pandavas, and all were very much pleased with her. On receipt of Draupadi's instructions, she was very much pleased and offered her good wishes in return to Dwarka. She was the daughter of Satyajit. After the departure of Lord Krishna, when Arjuna visited Dwarka, all the queens, including Satyabhama and Rukmini, lamented for the Lord with great feeling. At the last stage of her life, she left for the forest to undergo severe penance. Satyabhama instigated her husband to get the Parijata flower from the heavenly planets, and the Lord got it, even by force, from the demigods. As a common human secures things to please his wife, as already explained, the Lord had very little to do with so many wives, to carry out their orders like an ordinary man. But because the queens accepted the high quality of devotional service, namely administering the Lord all comforts, the Lord played the part of a faithful and complete husband. No earthly creature can expect to have things from the heavenly kingdom, especially the Parijata flowers, which are simply to be used by the demigods. But due to their becoming the Lord's faithful wives, all of them enjoy the special prerogatives of the great wives of the denizens of heaven. In other words, since the Lord is the proprietor of everything within his creation, it is not very astonishing for the queens of Dwarka to have any rare thing from any part of the universe. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 37th sloka of the 14th chapter of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the disappearance of Lord Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Offer my respectful and humble obeisances at the lotus feet of His divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who has so kindly opened my densely shut eyes and delivered me from the tremendous suffering and attachment to the modes of material nature. So it's really interesting that as the queens in Dwarka administered comforts to the Lord's lotus feet, taking care of Him in so many ways is often done by a rich man's servant, such as fanning him, which may not be very popular in this day and age because of air conditioning, but previously it wasn't unusual for people to have people fanning them in the West Indies, in Asia, even in the Old South. People would have slaves that would fan them. It was a common thing to bring comfort to a person who had such means. So the queens would personally fan the Lord. They would personally use a whisk. The whisk, a little bit different from the fan. Whisk may keep away some vomit or insect that perhaps would be bothering someone, like a fly or a mosquito. They may not have had mosquitoes in Dwarka. I'm not 100% sure, but there was probably some type of little insect there that, a whisk could whisk away. So the queens could whisk the Lord, they could fan the Lord, they could massage His lotus feet. You could pay, nowadays we pay people, if I'm not mistaken, $1.25 for every minute they massage you. If you go to the Whole Food Company, there's a massage therapist there, and the cost is $1.25 a minute. Now you can have them massage your feet, or your shoulders, your neck, your back, wherever you would like. If you go to the Chinese man in the tourist section of New Orleans, sometimes in various malls, they used to be in this Slidell Mall, I don't know if they're there anymore. They usually charge about $59.99 per hour. So, people get massage, therapeutic massage. You can go to certainly a therapist who has learned, and they also massage the muscles trying to help people. But the queens themselves would take up the service and massage the lotus feet of the Lord in various parts of His body. And they would even cook for Him themselves. Now, everybody knows a rich man has a cook, and they don't hire just any ordinary cook, but they have good cooks. You can imagine who cooks in the White House. I mean, you have to be expert. Expert at this art of making all sorts of cuisine for the Lord. It could be, in the White House, it could be Mexican. It could be Thai. It could be Chinese. It could be Native American even. It could be Creole. It could be all sorts of cuisine, all sorts of European types of flavors, that they become expert at. So it's no ordinary thing to cook for a great person. And one is very well paid for doing that. So the queens themselves would do these things. Now in our world, believe it or not, but the majority gets to administer these conflicts to the Lord on a daily basis. they massage the Lord's feet, they bathe the Lord. That includes drying him. They put the Lord's tilak on. They offer the Lord puja. The wives of Krishna offer him puja. They fan the Lord, they whisk the Lord, they cook for the Lord. They bring the Lord water, cold water in the summertime. So, in this way, the pujari is very dear to the Lord. Now, in our Vedic culture, not in the spiritual world, or not even when the Lord's on earth, but just in a Vedic culture consisting of varna and ashram. The pujari is certainly doing all these wonderful services for the Lord, but he's, in this way, he's worshiping the Lord, which is the most important item of that all the other castes are assisting with is in various ways, as well as maintaining themselves. They're also studying the Shastras so that people can understand these things logically, and as well as hearing it directly from their mother in the form of the Veda. The Veda takes the form of the mother of people. She is breathed out by the Lord, just as the creation is breathed out by the Lord. So the Veda comes along with the creation, along with his breath. And that Veda is first recited by the universal engineer Brahma after hearing it from the flute of Lord Krishna. But it appears automatically with the creation, and the Veda is considered our mother. So the Brahmins, they learned this Veda because this Veda is in Devanagari, or the language of Devas, Sanskrit. And they teach it to the people in general, as well as they understand it because the Veda explains how to perform sacrifice and how to perform these various rituals. All this is explained in the Veda. And the Brahmins have to understand this and execute the worship of the Lord for the good of society and explain it all to the people. But the Veda has many, many parts to it, so the Brahmins also explaining parts to the Kshatriyas for the proper administration of the kingdom, proper administration of justice, as well as military warfare. And they're also, the Brahmins are having learned sections dealing with good health, and as well as astrology and palmistry, so that they can counsel people and help them to understand why their karma is bad, or why their karma is good, or all that in between. But what could the Brahmin do? I mean, they could worship the Lord, but certainly they would die. Where would the food come from? Because they're not producing it. So the food is coming from the Vaishyas. The Vaishyas are protecting Lord Krishna's cows. As we know, Lord Krishna acted as a cowherd. But the Vaishyas are protecting the cows, and they're producing all those dairy, or all those very wonderful dairy products. And they're also growing the food. So that food is brought to the temple for the Brahmins to cook, as well as the people utilizing it themselves, and often trading it to get different things that they don't produce themselves. Because after all, you have some weaver is weaving cloth and making garments, and you may have different merchants who are collecting things like conch shells, and they're gathering things like people that make stuff like kotos, or pans for cooking, stuff like that. You're going to have a potter who's also maybe making things out of earth, that's good for using for eating or cooking. You have people that make leaves into plates. And you have people that harvest things like banana trunks and banana leaves and banana flowers, and they make banana flour and they sell all these different parts of the bananas. So you have all these things going on in the Vaishya community that are meant to produce the food and the wealth in society. You have Vaishyas that are even traveling in the world and gaining gold. You have others that are mining gold and jewels. And all these things are coming from Mother Earth. So the earth would never be pleased if the Vaishyas were just capitalizing on it and not worshiping the Lord. That would be a crime of theft, because it wouldn't be being utilized in the Lord's service. Goddess Bhumi would be offended that you're taking my wealth, you're just utilizing it for your sense pleasure. You're worse than an animal, because an animal takes according to the law of karma. And here you are taking and hoarding it like a demon. So the Vaishyas are producing all this wealth. But even when Krishna was on earth, the Vaishyas paid their tax to the Kshatriyas. Because the Kshatriyas administrative government for law and order in society, because after all, except in the spiritual world, there's going to be, someone who steps over the boundaries and, maybe comes under the influence of the lower modes of nature, and they have to have something so bad that they even take it. And so who's going to do something about that? If the people catch him, we don't want to have a vigilante thing. They would usually bring him to the village council. Small town crime you're not going to bother the king with. But, the king has to be there to administer justice. These village heads have to be able to have the support of a king, of a big government, in order to make sure that their decisions are backed up. So, the king is there, or the administrative government is there. And, they have to maintain a military, because you may have some big militia army come in and try to just take over the whole thing and even destroy the temple. And, worship God the way they want to worship God. So, the Kshatriya community is collecting some taxes. But they also have Brahmins who are worshiping the Lord in their palaces. And they provide them with all means to do that. They may even have, finer jewelry on their deities. Because after all, they are Kshatriyas. It's not that the richest temples are there. The richest temples may be in some big pilgrimage spot on the top of a mountain, like we see at Tirupati, where the whole town below is supporting that temple. And the local Kshatriyas are protecting it. But so many pilgrims go there and they bring the Lord so much gold that he becomes, the wealthiest deity on earth. So these things are going on, and we have the support of the Sudra community, who is helping all of them in so many ways. The Sudras, acting like as blacksmiths, and they're making swords, and they're making weapons, and they're making chariots, and they even drive chariots. They're even drivers, like chauffeurs, whether it be military drivers or driver for the palanquin of the king, or they simply drive for people. And they do all sorts of work in society, all kinds of work, any work that needs to be done, they're expert at doing it. And they even provide entertainment in the form of dance and drama and song. They become expert at singing the musical scale, and they can sing so many songs, and they can provide so much entertainment. After all, that takes so much work, for somebody to learn so many songs, or to learn or to compose or to simply be able to sing a composed song that has been composed to glorify some wonderful activity the king has done. So it's not that all of them are old folk songs that people learn simply while coming up, but they learn so many songs in a certain amount of time in order to carry out their function. So many things are going on. It's interesting that, this Vedic culture, it's there, and it's going on, and it goes on earth, and at the same time, the earth is protected by the Devas, and was described in the purport. Devas have things that humans don't have. I mean, after all, they're priests. No earthly priest can compete with their priest. I mean, he knows the Veda better than any priest. Brihaspati, he's famous all over the universe. I believe he even controls a store, doesn't he? Brihaspati. Mm-hmm. So, they learn military warfare much greater than any earthly king. And their Gandharvas can sing better than any earthlings. So, you have a whole realm that's there. But it's interesting how when Krishna appeared, and he appeared, first in the family of cowherds because, he was kept in hiding there. But you have to try to relate it that he's appearing on earth so people may consider him a human being. And he's having to be disguised or hidden because, his family is being persecuted by his uncle. And in fact, the uncle is waiting for him to appear so he can kill him because there had been a prophecy that the 8th son would kill him. So Krishna was hidden away amongst the cowherds. But cowherds are human beings, so Krishna is appearing on earth. People may think him a human being. But just hear how different. Here is Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead appearing. So the king is sending all these secret agents. I mean, they're not spies. They're agents that are meant to perform a task. And that task is murder. These things go on all the time. I mean, haven't the Russians been accused of murdering some people who are definitely treasonous? In their own country, they're going to be held accountable for having, committed treason. Just as America would hold someone. That guy who's over there hiding out in Russia, if he comes back, they're going to put him on trial for treason. So they couldn't put the people on trial, so the Russians are being accused of murdering the guy. I mean, that happens all the time. It's nothing unusual. It went on in the past. It will go on in the future. So the king was sending all these people to murder Krishna. And one after another, Krishna killed them. No ordinary child could have killed these people. Besides that, what else happened? During that time, Krishna wasn't herding just 100 cows, but as we learned this morning, innumerable cows. He was herding. With the colors of the rainbow from one extreme to the next. And he could call them all by name. And they would come. So just see, the difference. He did so many other things. People would come and barter. They would want some sort of food from the cowherd village. And somehow ever they managed to get, some fruits. And so they would want to trade. And when Krishna would take their fruits or food grains, he would fill up their basket with gems. Now, no one else can trade like that. What to speak of, the people are just going about their lives properly. Things come from God. They don't come from by chance. They come from God. So the people would, at certain times, calculated times on a regular basis. They perform some worship to Indra, because Indra is the Deva, the controller of the rain, under the direction of Vishnu, God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna had the audacity to stop it and to worship the local hill where he pastured his cows, and claimed that the hill was providing everything they needed. No one knew that the hill was none different from him. But of course that was an insult to the great Deva, the celestial King Indra, who punished the inhabitants of Vrindavan for doing so. But Krishna protected them and defeated Indra. What ordinary human child can defeat Indra? So things changed. Krishna appears within Vedic culture. He appears as a human being, but unlike a human being, he even controls the Devas, including Brahma. I don't have time to get into all the stories, but Krishna did all these things in Vrindavan. Quite amazing, actually. And things that no other human being can do. Not just like herding millions of cows. Consider this. Can any boy call girls out in the middle of the night? What will their family say? But Krishna could do these things and have the support of the family, including the girl's brothers and father. So Krishna would play with unlimited cowherd boys and unlimited cows during the day. And at night, he played with unlimited cowherd girls. So this cannot go on in ordinary Vedic culture. This would be a crime. That if the local head of the cowherd village didn't do something about it, and after all, it was his son. Maybe he wasn't going to do anything about it because it was his son. Sometimes you try to do something to the child of the person in charge, it may backfire. So many times, out of the sport of having fun, they would threaten Krishna that they were going to go to the king if Nanda Maharaj wasn't going to do anything about it. And the same thing happened with Lord Chaitanya. If Lord Chaitanya Nimai didn't stop pestering them and causing them problems, disturbing their worship, stealing their clothes even, then they will, if Jagannath Mishra wasn't going to do something about it, they would go to the king, because he'll do something about it. So, who can get away with these things but Krishna? So that's the difference between the material world and the spiritual world. And in Dwarka, Krishna did the same thing. He was a king, but not an ordinary king, as we just learned. His wife went with him to Indraloka. His wife went with him when he defeated the Narakasura and married all of the ladies that were in Narakasura's prison. 16,000 of them. And, so Krishna could take the heavenly flowers from heaven. He could defeat the host of Devas. He did it more than once, as the prince of Dwarka. In fact, as just a prince in Mathura, you had the earthly king Jarasandha, who was put together by a sorceress or witch and had the strength of 10,000 elephants. Nobody else practically could be defeated. He was Kamsa's, all these Kshatriya kings, whether they be of royal human blood or whether they be demons appearing as human beings. Kamsa had an alliance with Jarasandha. He was married to Jarasandha's daughters. And when Kamsa was killed, the daughters went home suffering tremendous grief. So Jarasandha naturally became the enemy of Krishna and attacked him with huge armies 17 times. Tremendous armies. And Krishna would take a handful of soldiers and his brother Balaram and defeat him every time. Now, who else can do something like that? It's impossible. When you see the last 3 wars America has fought, including the Korean War and including World War II, their armies were always greater than the opposing forces. What king, if he has the choice, goes to war with a smaller army? If he's a king, that means his influence is so great, he can raise an army. When Napoleon was exiled after being defeated by the Russian winter, he came back, his army was devastated because they were not prepared with the support to deal with winter. And so their siege of Moscow came to an end, and they had to return to France. And the army died of cold, lack of conflict. There was no one there to support them. So he was defeated in exile. He came back from exile and immediately raised an army amongst men who had lost their brothers and fathers, etc., in previous wars. His influence was so great. He could raise an army amongst his people. That is the power of a Kshatriya. So, Jarasandha had army after army. And Krishna didn't even bother to go out with an army. No Kshatriya fights like that except for Krishna. Because he doesn't have to. He can defeat an army single-handedly. So even in Dwarka he performed these unusual things, and even in Mathura. So that's the difference between the spiritual world and the material world. And the spiritual world, you see a whole Vedic structure there, except there is no birth, death, and old age and disease. There is no crime. There's no need of a Kshatriya army to worry about some foreign power coming in and disturbing things. Everything goes on in complete transcendental love. The pastimes between the gopis and Krishna, or the queens and Krishna, or all the princesses and ladies in the city of Mathura in Krishna, everything goes on unabated, without any human law, any law of Manu ever interfering. Because it's the spiritual realm. No one suffers death. No one worries about growing old. I mean, that's on a lot of people's minds, isn't it? Dealing with our health, whether you're growing old or whether you're just suffering from some health crisis. And it may not even be physical. It may be due to grief from loss of a relative, or some other relative's difficulty. It may be just dealing with the world in general. So many problems, but not in the spiritual world. They don't need psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors. Unneeded. An occupation that's not needed. They can simply milk cow, make butter, make birthi, make sandesh. They can offer it to Krishna with love, and they can take prasad. When Lord Chaitanya's mother cooked spinach, different types of shot, green leaves, Lord Chaitanya taught his people that this type of shot gives you this type of love of God. If you cook this type of shot and offer it, then you get this type of love of God. That the vegetable itself is imbued with this potency. That we learn from Lord Chaitanya. So, You know, this transcendental culture is there even in the Vedic culture. That the people can perform their occupations to worship Krishna and, you know, live a good, healthy life and go back home to Godhead. Going back home to Godhead means one, you know, enters into meditation on Krishna. Not that we, you know, have to remember life in the material realm, birth after birth. But we learn to meditate on Krishna so that we're actually thinking of some form of Krishna and some relationship with Krishna, so that our next birth will be in Krishna's Leela, and we can learn to act with his, they're not professionals, but we can use that word professional. But we can learn to act with his professional friends, those who are already his friends, those who are already his aunts and uncles, mother and father, etc. One gets trained up by those devotees who are already perfect in Krishna's Leela. But, you know, we have to be prepared to do that. To be prepared to do that means we have to want to do it. How can you do it? You can't enter into it if you don't want to do it. Your bhakti has to develop beyond practice to what is called raganuga, or spontaneous devotion. That means you have the want to do it. You don't want to do something else. You don't want to play basketball for this team or that team where you can earn a fortune doing something you love to do, dribbling balls and evading people and getting in the basket. You want to do something in Krishna's Leela. So that takes practice, but the practice is meant to achieve perfection, just like athletes practice to achieve a certain perfection. If they never come to that perfection, then you can't enjoy beyond the practice. So the perfection is that we can actually join the Leela and become one of the Lord's spontaneous friends. Become one of the Lord's spontaneous lovers. Become one of the Lord's spontaneous relatives, aunt or uncle, because there are a lot of old people in Vrindavan, but they never grow older. That's their Sanatan Dharma. They're an uncle. They love being Krishna's uncle. Or they're an aunt. They love trying to catch Krishna sneaking in their house. That's another thing that goes on in Krishna's Leela. That if it went on earth, some kid's going to be being punished for it. Especially if it continues to go on. But Krishna did it day after day. It goes on eternally, day after day. Them trying to catch Krishna, and Krishna sneaking around, trying to get in, and getting it. It's that much fun that they do it day after day. And it never gets old, because it's Krishna's Leela. So, that's the difference between the material world and the spiritual world. You see the same sort of thing there. Same type of culture. There's Vaishyas, living the Vedic type of way. Not modern type where they're going around with big trucks to transport everything. It's like when the truck drivers recently, what do they call it, went on strike in some country. Well, in 5 days' time, nothing was working because all the food's transported. Everything has to undergo transportation. So when all the truck drivers went on strike, everything was coming to a halt, and I think the government had to step in. They tried to negotiate, but when the negotiations broke down, see, you can negotiate, but you better be careful, because if a negotiation breaks down, it may lead to war. So in a case within the state itself, it led to the government having to do something. So they came in and they broke up the strike. They said, get your trucks out the roads. You're not blocking traffic, or our tank's going to run over your truck. move it, and if you keep getting in the way, we're going to have to take you out next. Because these trucks are going to start moving because you're not going to shut down society. So they simply did like Ronald Reagan did when the air traffic controllers went on strike in America. He didn't let the transportation get shut down. He simply fired them all and hired new ones. So when you negotiate, you better know when you're getting the best deal you can possibly get. Because if you overstep your boundaries, you may lose the whole deal.
What country was that in?
I forget right off. Some European country, I think a southern European country, but I can't remember. So anyhow, but in Krishnaloka, you don't worry about those things. They actually do all the transportation with ox carts. Here in America, we can't even find an ox cart driver or someone to train an ox, practically speaking. The only people in this kind that train an ox are getting old like me and, don't have another decade in them probably. So, and that's what they do in the spiritual world. And there's never no problem with having to go on strike. You never hear the cowherd men going on strike. That's only in this material world. So the Vedic culture is here, but it's ultimately meant for teaching us to become Krishna's devotee. And by the time we get old, we should be able to meditate on the perfection of it and not have to constantly meditate on material life. Because after all, the wheel of samsara goes on and never ages besides Kali Yuga. So in other ages, Vedic culture is dominant. So that means people are taking birth in Vaishya families, in Kshatriya families. They're not taking birth all the time in a Malecha family, or a Yavana family, or some family that's divorced the Vedic culture. They're taking birth in Vedic families. Again, and again, and again. Because they haven't achieved perfection. So perfection comes when we stop meditating on the material world and meditate on the spiritual world. And that's what's taught in Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so I'll stop here. I didn't pass out the forms again. Jesse's already got one, Longa Ganesha's got him, Ashtika's got him. Valari doesn't have one right now, Haridwani's got it. Mother Colleen won't get one because Gokula's got one of those leadership forms. So she's unless she's needed to act as part of the family, she won't get one of those. And unless Valari's needed to jump in as a family member somewhere, he won't get one of those. So there's only 45 forms basically that are handed out, 46 including the temple president.